Welcome back to episode 2. Here I am developing the craft that will fly us into our first ever orbital mission. So here I am putting all the science and everything, our experiments. There's this external mount camera that gives us a nice view from inside the cabin in that enhanced IVA, where we can actually see the angle of that camera and see outside from the interior, which is a pretty nice functionality. I'm just building it out, adding all of the experiments. It's going to be just a simple orbital mission and operating within the 30-part cap. This is a pretty good design, I think. All right, so here's what I've come up with. Pretty standard. I keep saying standard. Simple. Simple, elegant, straightforward. So we have this first stage, KW rocketry engines. And then going to the LV909 and this short fuel tank. We have the Science Junior on there as well. At this time we don't have electrical stuff, but this should be sufficient for getting us into orbit and back after some time. We also have this here camera, which should give us a nice view from inside of what's going on. Additionally, we have Derny Kerman on his first flight. He will be the first Kerbal to orbit the planet of Kerbin. And we're going to toss him out there onto the pad to go higher and faster than any Kerbal before him. Eventually. Once it loads. At some point. There we go. Yeah, those clouds are going really fast. But here we go. Here we are. Sitting right there. And I'm going to save the Science Junior for later. But we are going to take a peek through the camera. There we are. Wonderful view. You can see down onto the hatch. You can see all the way up to the horizon. And on the side there, you can see bits of the Space Center. And if we go over to the other side, probably be able to see the ocean. Nope. But, well, you know, that's how it is sometimes. So we're full throttle all the way up. I'm going to put the camera there, our nav ball there. And I'm going to try flying into orbit entirely from IVA. This should be interesting and fun. So, we're going to go ahead. 3, 2, 1. And once again, it was very, very loud, and you could not really tell anything that I was saying. So yeah, here we are, 4 times speed. So, you know, this is a pretty ordinary procedure here. Although I suppose it is our first orbital flight, but it's kind of boring, and I wouldn't want to, bore you with all of the meticulous details of how I actually flew this thing, and also why you couldn't hear me. It was mostly just me talking about all these different numbers here. I'm just watching all of these things go on, and, going on our path into orbit, it ended up being a little bit shallow, and so we ended up having some time after Nico to coast to Apoapsis. So there, our Apoapsis is for 90 kilometers. Here's all our orbit information. So we're pretty close to orbit. Just a little bit more until we pass into space officially. I'm just going to accelerate forwards for it. Yep, there we are. So now that we're in space, I'm going to run the materials bay. We can see all of those bits and pieces in there. Love the effort and attention to detail that they really put in there. Is that a tomato plant? Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in here. Some toast, squid, crystals. Yeah, this is cool. Okay. A minute, 30 seconds to this. I'm gonna warp forward a little bit. And we actually might be cutting it close on the fuel here. Which is a little worrying. But we're just gonna have to see where it goes. And we throttle up to finish our orbital insertion. I was hoping that I would have a little bit of fuel left over to kick us up into a much higher orbit, that we could get the high space science. But that ended up not being the case. We had just enough to get home safely. We only need like a tiny amount of fuel. Yeah, we'll be fine. Just gonna warp ahead. Get a nice clean circular orbit here. Get lined up along. Finish the burn. There goes the camera switch. And there we are. We are now in orbit. So we'll do some more science. Yeah, there's not a whole lot that we can get from here. Now what I want to see is, I'm just going to try around how much delta V would take. So about 30 meters per second. So if we use 40 meters per second to boost up, that would, I doubt we'd be able to get into high space with this. But you know what? That's fine. We'll just take whatever science we can, of which we've already taken the majority. So we're just going to science spam. Crew report. Now we have that. Go on. Tell us what you see. Oh, we are spinning. That'll be fun to get back into. Let's collect the data. Remove it. Chase the hatch. What's that? Fuel? Nah, we're fine. Just get oriented. So yeah, there'll be... the only downside to the IVA that I've found is that sometimes caution and warning or alarms will go off when they really don't need to. Like when I'm trying to land somewhere, it'll yell at me that I'm too low to the ground or something like that. There's the moon. The moon, our next goal. Probably send someone out there. I think that's Minmus, although, yeah, that's Minmus. So we have Distant Objects Enhancer. That's another mod. So we can see the planets in the sky, although I'm not sure where many. Oh, there's Eve. Duna, Moho. That one? No, that's not one. I think Jewel should be coming over the horizon soon. Yep, there it is. And so, yeah, we've achieved our goal. Now, I'm just curious because I want to come down on the day side. So if I do at periapsis, we go 70 meters per second. Oh yeah, no, we'll have plenty of fuel. I'm just gonna warp ahead. Zipping by below us. There's the moon again. Beautiful sunset, highly sped up. So I think we'll be coming down pretty close to KSC. Might actually splash down east of it. Firing our engines to slow us down. I'm gonna go for about 35 kilometers. Yep, 26 meters per second to spare. Beautiful. Just gonna warp forward in our orbit till we pass below the atmosphere. And you know he's going to make it. He's going to survive because we've got that beautiful sunset there for us. Ditch the stage and assume re-entry attitude. That is a can-do attitude, by the way. Now, another graphics mod that I have is Firefly, which gives us much prettier re-entry visuals. Here comes the sun. Do-do-do-do. So yeah, you'll notice we have no connectivity because I have in fact removed all the extra ground stations. So what we've done here is by sending that stage, by ejecting it downwards and giving it a kick down, we have essentially put it on a lower path, a lower orbit, so it will go faster than us and go ahead and plunge deeper into the atmosphere quicker. So it's kind of like a dummy. I think it's actually getting pulled backwards a little bit by the air. We're starting to feel it. Yeah. Now what's neat about the IBA, you can see here the G meter basically says 0. When we go internal, yep, descent, air braking, we're decelerating at a whole 0.03 Gs. That is not a lot of speed that we're losing. And yeah, there's the horizon there. 57 kilometers. Yep, we've started slowing down. I'm going to turn off stability control and let it kind of wobble into its preferred orientation. And there we go. We are starting to see the heating. We're burning the ablator. And once again, at this point, I should really go in and fix my volume settings because the re-entry sound effects completely drowned out everything I was saying. And what I was saying was I was just mostly talking about, heat shields. So the whole purpose is to protect, you have these delicate occupants, and you have this thin shield between them and a roughly 5,000 degree fireball. And the idea is, how do you protect them and how do you stop that heat from transferring backwards? And so the ablative heat shield is one such solution to this, where instead of coming up with some material that can actually survive and withstand those temperatures, instead what you do is you have it evaporate and basically burn away, which is a very effective way of just taking all of the heat that's coming in and then using that for chemical and like thermal phase change processes and whatnot. And then it just basically takes all of that and carries it away from the spacecraft so that the actual interior and the occupants can stay at a pretty comfortable temperature while everything outside is just burning up. And it's actually fairly complicated in real life. The composition and the design of your heat shield is influenced by all sorts of factors like the speeds and entries that you're coming into and the profile of your entry, as well as the chemistry and composition of the atmosphere. Because coming into an atmosphere of a planet like Earth, where you have oxygen and nitrogen, the way it burns your heat shield materials is going to be different than how you enter into an atmosphere, say Mars or Venus, that's mostly carbon dioxide, or like Jupiter, that's basically just hydrogen. And so there's a lot of fascinating and complex design and theory that goes into how heat shields work. And honestly, it's kind of sad that these ablative shields are just single-use, one and done, because they're such, honestly, marvelous pieces of engineering and chemistry and material science that go into one of the most important and dangerous parts of a space mission, which is coming home. It's cool and all if you can, go to orbit and go to space, but it kind of sucks if you don't get to come home at the end of it. So we can thank the humble ablative heat shield for all that it has offered us in our expeditions beyond the atmosphere. But Derny, he has lived through his historic mission. Yep. A beautiful view to treat him on the way down. Feeling a few G's here. And at about 5 kilometers, we'll deploy the parachute. And just admire the view. And I will make you sit through and watch this entire descent in real time. Parachutes come out. We drift down at our very slow pace that they drag us down to. And then it's just pretty, expected. We just fall down. And you can see now once we hit the water that we start bouncing around. You can hear me babbling like a chipmunk. And from this historic mission, how much science have we retrieved? We've gotten a whole 40 science. Okay. With this, we'll surely be able to research better technologies to make bigger rockets that can go farther. But that will be in future episodes. Until next time.